we're allowed to visit one of the detention centers. To an outsider, this may look like a lecture room at a college or university. But this is the Mishal or Beacon program, helping detainees to reintegrate into mainstream society. Not long ago, these men had taken up arms against the military, but now under watchful eyes, they were being retrained in a relatively free environment. Each detainee is carefully screened before being selected for vocational training. We talked to one of the psychiatrists to find out what he feels may make the difference.
I see them very energetic and very active in the participation. And on account of rehabilitation and account of repeated assessments, I found out that they have very high motivation to go back into the society and become a more useful part than they used to be.
The Swati Taliban were able to recruit people who came from poor sections of society, unskilled laborers and farmers. The military therefore thought that in order to de-radicalize them, they must be given vocational training so they can become useful members of their society. Talking to some of the detainees in a casual and open environment, we asked what they feel about the program.
It's a very useful training program for us by the military, which have put us into a right direction. And after completion of courses, we would be able to serve into the society and spend a better life.
Some of the skills they acquire here may help them find suitable employment when they're released. From computers, carpentry, welding to motor mechanics. After visiting Mishal, we head into Khwaza Khela to meet Javed Khan, a former detainee now trained as a welder. He helps his nephews run a car yard. Javed's is a success story, and while there are signs of cautious optimism, back at Mishal, the real test will come when the other former detainees are freed back into society. Kamal Haider, AlJazeera, Swat.
This is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making headlines. We're bringing you live pictures now from Tobruk in eastern Libya, showing anti-government protests taking place. These demonstrators calling for unity and the removal of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, among the first pictures we've managed to get out of the country for some time. In other developments, a Libyan plane carrying Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's daughter has been stopped from landing in Malta. It's not the first time we've heard reports of a family member trying to leave Libya. Reports from Lebanon just a couple of days ago said that a private Libyan jet with the wife of one of Gaddafi's sons on board was turned away from Beirut. Meanwhile, the Libyan army general has told Al Jazeera that an Air Force pilot refused to bomb the city of Benghazi and chose instead to eject from his plane. The general said that his forces are now backing the anti-government protesters. Italy has described the reports of 1,000 people killed in Libya as being credible. On Tuesday night, Gaddafi had vowed to fight to the last drop of blood. Italy's foreign minister says Gaddafi has now lost control of the east of the country, and he's warned of an exodus of biblical proportions. Nouri al-Masmari was part of Muammar Gaddafi's inner circle for many years. He has told Al Jazeera that he too has now deserted the regime.
Now what is happening in Libya is genocide. It's mass killing. I mean, come on. How? I mean, either you are a diabolic man that you stay with this man, or either you are a human being and get out. And that's what we have done. The only thing we are going out and we are joining our people. And we will fight with them. We don't care. We die today, we die tomorrow, we die the day after, but one day Libya will be free. And we say, our souls, our blood is sold for Libya.
Well, meanwhile, the European Union has begun to draw up a plan of sanctions to be imposed on Libya. They could include assets freeze, a visa ban, and the legal pursuit of some of the major figures in the Gaddafi regime. Now, in other news, 7 members of the ruling party in Yemen have resigned after the violent attacks on protesters. 2 pro-democracy activists were killed, more than 10 injured in clashes overnight. The group of 7 says they plan to form a new independent bloc. Those are the main stories on Al Jazeera. More news after Inside Story. Embattled but defiant, in a bizarre speech, an angry Muammar Gaddafi calls on his supporters to confront protesters, says he won't resign and vows to fight to the death. A desperate leader feeling betrayed? What does this say about his state of mind as he fights for his future? One of our guests today, a former member of Gaddafi's inner circle. This is Inside Story. Welcome to the program. I'm Imran Garda. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi has apparently set the stage for a violent final showdown to crush ongoing protests against his rule across Libya. In an angry and ranting speech, Gaddafi said he hadn't ordered the use of force yet, but if he does, Libya will burn. He has also threatened to turn Libya into what he called another Somalia should his regime fall. But what is his state of mind at this point in time? We'll be talking to a panel of guests, including one of the closest aides to Gaddafi for 40 years. But first, Zainab Walji and this report.
If his words were meant to calm and reassure Libyans, he failed miserably. Muammar Gaddafi's ranting and often nonsensical 75-minute speech confirmed that he has no intention to compromise.
I will not leave the country, and I will die as a martyr at the end.
Previously unquestioned loyalty to Muammar Gaddafi is fast unravelling, and the clearly paranoid leader made overt threats against his own people.
And when they are caught and prosecuted, and they are begging for mercy, we will not be merciful, we will not be forgiving.
His appearance would be amusing if the situation wasn't so tragic. Thousands of protesters have been killed and injured, many of them displaying the scars of brute force used against them. Gaddafi has controlled Libya with an iron fist for 42 years. Under his rule, the country was perceived in the West as a pariah state, accused of funding terrorism. He is said to have bankrolled Black September and the Munich massacre at the 1972 Olympics. He acknowledged that Libya had a responsibility in the bombing of Pan Am 103 that killed 270 people over Lockerbie in 1988. In the 80s, Gaddafi began work on what he saw as his great calling. Establishing a large Arab state across North Africa, it led to a 2-year war with Chad. Relations with the West, in particular the United States, improved in the past few years, after Gaddafi dismantled his nuclear program. But that political honeymoon proved short-lived. During his 42 years in power, he had glorified himself as the great uniter of Africa, the great uniter of the Arabs. He even gave himself the title of King of Culture at a UN summit. And it's this detachment from reality that has made him the object of both political and personal fascination, not to mention ridicule. For years, Gaddafi has displayed eccentricities that baffled many. His entourage is made up exclusively of female bodyguards.